So as the details get revealed in the NBA's new $76 billion television deal with ESPN, NBC, and Amazon, there was a lot of curiosity when it came to the WNBA portion of that deal, especially with the additions of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark sort of providing a boost to the league. But come to find out of that $76 billion for 11 years, the WNBA will only be getting $2.2 billion of that for the 11 years, which equates to roughly around $200 million a year. Now, when it comes to public perception, this looks like a complete lowball. But in the business world, the NBA can hide behind the fact that they could only negotiate with numbers from the last couple of years. So today's price could only be negotiated by current day numbers. And basketball legend / Hall of Famer Cheryl Miller had quite a few things to say about the current deal.
Those lines, there's reporting about a $2.2 billion media rights deal out there.
There's rumor of it?
Reporting about the next media rights deal.
Then if I'm not great with numbers, low ball.
Why do you say that?
That's a low ball. You're saying how much?
$2.2 billion over 11
Not
years.
enough. Not even close. Now, I'm not trying to inflate it a whole lot, but a 2's nice. An 8 would be better. That's what I'm talking about, because they know. They know. And we certainly have come a long way. And I'm not about gouging, but it's a long time overdue. And we're going to continue to get better and better. All you have to do is look at, college basketball and what's coming next, the next wave of excitement. And you have this now, and pretty soon we're going to add another gold medal. So women's basketball is in a great place right now.
Just what do you need to do then in your mind to go from 2.2 billion to an 8 billion, as you say?
We need tough and fair negotiators and visionaries, and we need a bully. We need a bully behind the table that's willing to say, we'll break up the pieces and go from there. But there's a certain number bigger than 2 that we want.
Now, Cheryl is right. The league is in a great place. There's an influx of brand new talent coming in, as well as current players. And things were kind of building up for the WNBA before even Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese came in a couple years prior, especially with the rise of the Aces and the Liberty. But again, when it comes to streaming, the platform itself, it may be inventory based. They're going to need a lot of games to be played. The WNBA right now is only at 40, opposed to the NBA being 82 games. And also at the same time, the negotiations, the bull that Cheryl Miller was referring to, could only negotiate with current day numbers. But to get great insight on this, we're going to hear from former ESPN president John Skipper and former Florida Marlins president David Sampson, and also Pablo Torre on some of the inner nuances when it comes to this deal, as it includes a clause, an early opt-out clause by the WNBA. So there's potential for them to make more money, but there is a stipulation with that clause. Once again, we'll get great insight on this. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
The WNBA made an announcement that all of a sudden they are getting $200 million a year from the exact same partners who are spending $76 billion on the NBA. And we discussed this. The WNBA was not able to negotiate on its own, so they negotiated with the NBA, and the NBA picked a number out of the blue sky that happens to be the number John said. It's really amazing. Out of all the whole numbers in the world,
incredible prediction.
There's an infinity of numbers, and you had it perfect.
They were going to certainly give the WNBA the same or something approaching the same proportional increase that the NBA overall deal got.
It's being hailed, though, as such a victory for the WNBA, and I would just...
It is a victory for the WNBA. And again, I will semantically quarrel with you. The WNBA couldn't do this on their own. Certainly they could do it on their own. They, with the NBA, decided that they had a likelihood of getting more money this way. And they did. And once again, I would tell you, it's a great investment.
By who? By the networks?
It's a great investment by the networks. It's a great investment by the NBA for the popularity of basketball.
But you say the investment, what's the downside? In order for an investment, there has to be downside risk. What's the downside risk? Would Amazon have been able to bid 1.8 minus what their percentage of the 200 million is? So let's pretend that they are at 70 out of the 200 just for fun. Would they have done 1.8 minus 70 if they didn't get the WNBA games? Is that what you're presenting to me?
No, that's not what I'm presenting to you. I'm presenting to you that money going to the WNBA will create more value in basketball and basketball franchises and basketball popularity than taking that still fairly small amount of money and giving more of it to the 30 NBA owners. That money will be better spent here if you're looking at the sport of basketball. Look at the proportionality. It's what do we say? $200 million.
Yeah, let's do
It's $2.2 billion out of 76. 1 out of 38. It's somewhere between 2 and 3%.
But that's the point. It wasn't enough to talk about, but we're celebrating as though it's the biggest victory.
Well, people who aren't familiar with the previous predictions and the state of play. So before, David, it was what? What was the WNBA getting in the previous deal?
$40 million from the exact partners who had the rights to the NBA.
And that's $40 million for only 40 games a year. And that in itself was also tagged along with the NBA deals, negotiated all in one package. And this was also during a phase where the WNBA was transitioning from teams playing in arenas to teams playing in smaller gyms. So things were kind of in flux. Keep in mind, the WNBA, their most legendary and most successful team, the Houston Comets, they don't even exist today because they just basically filed for bankruptcy and disappeared. But they're equivalent to the Chicago Bulls when it comes to team success.
I think they got $40 million from ESPN because I do not believe that TNT had a women's basketball package. So that would be proof that the NBA didn't force them to take a WNBA package.
Right, and there was the plus, I believe, $20 million or so.
That Disney and
Ion, that's Ion and CBS and Amazon. All three, I think, and I can't be sure I got that right.
John Skipper is right. The finals will be spread around 3 different networks, ESPN maintaining 5, while NBC and Amazon each will have 3. So unlike the previous deal, all 3 partners will be participating. It's not going to be like how TNT had it before where they don't pick up any of the games.
Have WNBA packages and didn't have NBA packages.
I'm wrong then. I didn't realize that ESPN separately negotiated the WNBA deal that the NBA bifurcated it.
No, we, as you pointed out, the leagues all value their assets. They presented us with a collection of assets that they said this is what it's worth. Since I wasn't calculating it as specifically, I had said, here's what we want to buy. They said, here's what it costs. I said, how about this? They said, how about that? Mostly, as I've said to you before, we did more negotiating on what we got for our money than we did always on the money. Because when you have must-have league rights, the league gets to assert their leverage by naming a price.
Mm-hmm.
We do, other than with the NFL, we generally would get it down some, but then we'd also get a lot more assets for that. We wanted the WNBA, but I did not negotiate it separately.
So here's the accounting in full. The league currently has media deals with Ion, CBS, and Amazon, as John indicated. On top of the ESPN agreement, the deals, including the ESPN agreement, are worth $60 million, as presently constituted. When all of these agreements are reached, however, the WNBA's average annual TV rights fee, this all via Sportico, will be worth at least $260 million. And so multiples, David.
Mm-hmm.
Multiples.
This just continues the narrative that's a great narrative, that the WNBA is this league where Caitlin Clark is, women's sports, women's basketball. It's having a moment. Let's make the moment last. And the way we're going to fake it till you make it is we are going to pin a number that is the same multiple that the NBA got when there's not one underlying reason that the WNBA would have gotten the same increase that the NBA. I can't think of one business principle where with the performance of the WNBA would indicate that they should have that same increase that the NBA had. Can you?
Now, David Sampson right here is presenting the reality. In the business world, you're going to have to use your current day numbers to prove that you can get a certain amount of money. The WNBA can't get a major increase on potential, only on current day numbers. That is the reality on the business side. On the public relations side of things, especially on social media, that's a nice feel-good story. But once again, in the business world, it doesn't work like that.
Poke some holes in this than I would if I was you. But the ratings are up more for the WNBA than the NBA. The
Percentage basis?
yes,
WNBA was a slash, but okay.
the attendance at the games is going up.
Total number of games, total number of people is a fraction of what the NBA gets.
Facts. And also the WNBA, even with this boost, they're still projected to lose millions by the end of the year. So the league overall is still running in the red.
And I'm not trying to be against the WNBA. Please don't paint me in a misogynistic light. I'm merely saying that A, you've got an incentive you have knowledge of how to be right on this argument we had and to make me look bad. B, you also have a job where you are selling media rights to a women's league. So this is very beneficial.
We should disclose that. And David, despite Caitlin Clark, despite these percentage increases, despite the atmosphere of these games, which is probably different to a casual consumer, you're saying, and yet, the way you get to these numbers it seems almost offensively anti-mathematical to you.
It is exactly, that is exactly how I would put it. And it's not based on reason, and I'm fine with it. There's a lot of ego premiums in the world of sports and in the world of business, so I'm perfectly fine with that. I just don't like when things get mislabeled. And I don't like when somehow we're confusing the WNBA's increase as though it's merit-based versus being on the tail of the NBA. There is obviously better health in the WNBA today than yesterday, of course. But to say that it merits the same type of attention that the NBA gets is not proper.
Well, nobody's saying it has thus far merited. We just pointed out that it's getting somewhere between 2 and 3% of the money. Is it worth? Would I, sitting at ESPN, think that the package is worth that 2.5%? Yeah, I would. If you said you could buy for 97.5% of this money, you could have just bought the NBA. I would have said no. I'd prefer.
But I'm asking you to do it differently. Would you have paid $200 million as a standalone company in the open market without getting NBA games? Would you have spent $200 million on the WNBA?
That's actually the perfect question. And keep in mind, that league is also losing millions. And these networks have to answer to shareholders. So they're going to have to explain to why they're investing so much money in a league that has yet to be profitable.
Sell you the warranty. You have to decide if it's worth it or not. All three of the new partners decided it was worth it.
You think they had a choice?
I don't think. Nobody ever told me I couldn't get an NBA deal. And apparently TNT got an NBA deal without buying it.
You were the A deal.
We were the A deal.
And that shows where the
That's why we put that big value in the A deal. Exactly.
You can be fooled by his drawl all you want, and he's never going to admit any of this, and it's fine. It doesn't bother me anymore. I used to not sleep after we taped these.
Yeah, John Skipper, former president of ESPN, he's towing the line right now because being very truthful about the WNBA or just anything in general when it comes to regards of women, just overall around that ESPN Disney ecosystem, it's a very touchy thing. But make no mistake about it, the suits behind closed doors, when it comes to their money, shit is never that touchy. They're going to be straight up.
Shows on a Wednesday.
Well, I am happy to hear that you're sleeping.
Perfectly well.
But there is one more thing I want to find out about today, because there is this clause that I want to cite to The Athletic that, quote, there is an agreement between the league, the WNBA, and the media partners to revisit the rights deals with good faith talks after 3 years that could replace them to reflect the league's growth, end quote. And so, John, what does that sentence indicate to you?
What I think it means to me is that the WNBA, on the trajectory they're on, we're hoping to get paid for a continuation of that trajectory with more money, and that the partners decided there was a limit to how much they were willing to pay, but said, you know what, if it blows up the way it's blowing up and it's going up 100% every year for the next 3 years, we will have a good faith discussion about what that might mean for our rights payment.
There is no greater legal eyewash than the two words good faith.
Hard to disagree. It often makes people feel good to get it in a deal, but your lawyer will always tell you, won't they, that it actually means nothing.
It mostly means bad faith is what it actually
Unless
mostly
it's
means.
said with a drawl, in which case you're like, oh, this faith does sound pretty great.
Comes with tonic.
Now, I have to say, in the contracts that I had good faith things written into, they have sometimes been cited and sometimes been used. But they if you go to court, it'll have no legal bearing.
Now, right there, former ESPN president John Skipper letting you know there is nothing legally binding the NBA and their television partners to renegotiate the WNBA's portion of the TV deal. But in today's media landscape, make no mistake about it, there might be pressure on the public relations side, especially with the aura around the WNBA players just being so outspoken. Because when you get to the nitty gritty of this deal that starts in 2026, that good faith, that quote unquote good faith renegotiations will only happen all the way in 2028. So the television partners will be eating pretty good off the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese tree if it goes as expected with the boost. And in a way, that should provide enough proof of concept that, okay, we could possibly give them much more. This is how much we're making, and this is our new offer. Who knows? But again, on the business side, there's nothing really holding the NBA as well as their television partners to restructure that deal.
Very idea, that faith in this
That
world.
it's a headline makes me laugh.
David Sampson, John Skipper, two very different types of lawyers.
But it is what it is. It looks like the NBA kind of put like a nice little PR bow tie on that contract to make it look good in case they received any backlash that the WNBA is only getting $2 billion out of that 76. But on the business side, there's nothing that's really going to contractually obligate them to renegotiate that deal, no matter who it's advantageous to. But I tell you what, the WNBA at times, the aura around that league is very adversary to the NBA, even though the NBA is supporting them. Still, in a way, with the influx of cash, these are good problems to have.